Learning how to progress a build fast is the most important skill you can learn in Deepwoken. Once you master it, you can prog a build in as little as an hour, and as someone who's progged many complex PvE builds in my time, I have learned many early and late game progression methods that can seriously speed up your progressions regardless of how skilled you are. I'll also be providing general quality of life tips just to make your progressions faster, but most importantly, keep you safe from gankers that try to ruin your progression. So if you enjoyed this video or find it useful, make sure to like and subscribe, and join the Discord if you want to get some really strong PvE builds. The first thing that comes to mind when you think about progressing is, what origin do you start off as? Well, there is 4 meta origins depending on your skill with the build, and these can be broken down into 2 broad categories: Overworld and Depths. Starting off with the Overworld category, the reason that you would choose this is because you can select Trial of 1. It's fairly easy to beat once you've learned the game, and allows you to speed through the often very slow early game of progressing a build. If you're progressing in the Overworld, you'll either select a Voidwalker or Ignition Union origin. You may be asking yourself, why not select the Trial of 1 origin? Well, by doing this, you're actually giving up a lot of very useful perks that Voidwalker and Ignition Union have. Voidwalker acts as a place to sell or bank your stuff, and you can teleport to it anywhere in the Overworld. It's also ideal for PvP builds, as you can teleport to people to gank them. Ignition Union is sort of an in-between of Voidwalker and Deepbound. Some of the perks it has include being able to remotely take jobs, the quest boards found in most factions, making progressing generally a lot easier. However, the main difference between Ignition Union and Voidwalker is Ignition Union generally lends itself to being better for PvP. And the main reason that both are better than the Trial of 1 origin is because you get all of this while being able to do Trial of 1. So it's strictly an upgrade if you don't mind a short walk. The Overworld early game is incredibly easy for new players and experienced players alike. You simply start off by doing Trial of 1, and then once you finish, you can go kill the Immortal Guardians at Crypt of the Unbroken. These guys give you quite a lot of XP, and they're basically like fighting an enforcer. The main things you need to make sure of is that you grip them far away from the crypt, just so things don't aggro on you, and that you're trying to only fight one at a time. You don't want to fight the guys on the top floor either, since they don't spawn a chest, and the chest is what gives you a lot of XP. You can fight these guys until the point in your build where you Shrine of Order, or until you hit power 15. I'll be discussing ways to make yourself stronger to give you a better chance at fighting them in the next section after this. Alternatively, you can progress in the Depths. Here you'll either select the Castle Light or Diluvian Origins. These are the 2 fastest ways to progress in the game, however it requires you to have quite a lot of skill in PvE. They do come with the downside of not really being beneficial to PvP builds either, so if you prefer the perks of Voidwalker, then you want to stick to the Overworld. Castle Light is a very fast progression method, as you have all the amenities of Castle Light, such as a banker, a sell place, and training gear close by, as well as the job board for the divers, which can allow you to take quests to spawn in mobs faster. The only reason Castle Light is risky is because of Depths gankers. However, there is a very easy way around this. Once you buy everything from Castle Light, you make your way to the other side of the map to the Ignition Union base. Here there is far less people, and you can still take jobs for the Ignition Union, making it basically the same as Castle Light, but with way less risk of players ganking you. When taking jobs in the Depths, you want to make sure you're always taking them in the Celtor wastes. As this encompasses most of the map, it means you often don't need to go far to get these monsters to spawn. There's only really 2 jobs you want to avoid, those being Broodlord and Nautilodont, as these 2 can either spawn a really tough enemy or, well, a Squirvo, which not many people can kill a Squirvo at a low power. While you could take all the other jobs, as a whole, a good rule of thumb for jobs in the Depths is any monsters you're not confident with, don't take their jobs. Diluvian is actually an even safer alternative to Castle Light, as you're doing it in the dungeon of Diluvian. Diluvian, so there is zero risk of being ganked by other players. However, it is harder to progress this way, as you will need to be fighting stronger stuff in PvE, but you do get the upside of getting free loot to sell, and getting basically guaranteed Bell by power 20 without needing to do any bosses. You may be asking yourself, why not the Chariot Spire origin that also starts in the depths, and you naturally spawn at Ignition Union base? While this origin isn't strictly bad, in my opinion it's just not worth it, since you don't get a lot of the quality of life that Castle Light provides you, such as Call of the Deep that lets you teleport to depths whenever you want, and you won't get access to the Bank and Aquatarian in Castle Light. You can go Chariot Spire if you really want, but in my opinion, Castle Light is a direct upgrade. However, I will say you can purely progress faster with the Chariot Spire origin, since by using the phone it gives you, you can remotely take jobs in the depths from Ignition Union, Divers, and Celtor to effectively make the mob spawns 3 times as fast. For all of the deep bound methods in the depths, you can continue to do them until power 20, since the XP is pretty good, but most people generally stop around the Shrine of Order mark. There is 2 strategies for either the Overworld or depths that encompasses the late game of progression. Late game generally being the time after you Shrine of Order or after power 15. Since after power 15 there is an XP curve which generally reduces the amount that you're gaining. What you'll do for your late game progression method depends on your skill. The easier of the two is by doing Hive jobs. By taking the Thresher jobs at Hive, 1 Thresher kill is often 3 to 4 jobs completed, which is a lot of XP and money. However, if you're really good at Ferryman, doing him is the most meta progression method in the game. If you don't know, Ferryman essentially has his own inbuilt chain of perfection, which stacks with the existing talent. So the better you are at flawlessing Ferryman, the faster you'll kill him. I will also mention that the XP he gives is buffed by the Ignition Union origin, since that gives you XP bonuses in dungeons. Not to mention, Ferryman can additionally give you knowledge in Spring, which is a nice cherry on top. Plus, he obviously gives you free Bell progression. It only takes 3 to 4 kills to fully get your Bell. And those are the progression steps for hitting power 20. You can hit it in as little as 1 hour on some builds. It just depends how good you are at fighting monsters and bosses. The main thing you need to remember is to always log if you see a threatening player or think you might get ganked. It's better to be safe than sorry. Now let's talk about boosting your XP gain. There is 2 very easy ways to do this: Vow of Thorns and the Maverick Boon. Allegedly, the Maverick Boon is only about 10% more XP. Keep in mind that XP buff values aren't known, so this could be as high as 50% or just not work at all. However, over the Maverick Boon, it's actually more worth it to pick Autodidact, which upon power up will give you 3 investment points to put anywhere. This is very useful for training annoying attributes such as any of the weapons, charisma, intelligence, or fortitude. I'll very often use this boon to speed up my own progressions. Adret also passively has this on its race, and it stacks with Autodidact, allowing you to get 6 points per power up, which is crazy. However, Vow of Thorns is what most experienced players will use to make their progressions significantly faster. I want to say it's about a 2 times XP boost when progressing. The good thing about it as well is it's not a boon, but an Echoes modifier, so you can freely choose it on your builds. However, once you spawn in with it, you can't change it at all. The reason you might not want to go Vow of Thorns is because there is 2 big downsides to it. 1 death in the overworld can send you to depths immediately, and you have a harder depths trial. There can either be a corrupt Bonekeeper, corrupt King Thresher, or the real threatening one, a corrupt lightning squivo. It's very common to get infinite stunned by this enemy. I've nearly wiped max builds to it in the past. The other 2 aren't too hard if you know what you're doing. I will also state Vow of Thorns gives you passive loot skipper as well, so that's a second benefit, but this doesn't affect chest loot. If you are taking Vow of Thorns though, you can take the Hollow and Deep Champion Floor, since these 2 are just downsides of Vow of Thorns already, and will give you more echoes when you eventually wipe the build. The harder depth trial can can cause issues with freshie builds, since it's not uncommon for builds to require you to do stuff in the overworld before Shrine of Order. However, some max power builds, especially mages, can struggle to kill a Squibbo, but luckily there is two pretty easy ways around this. The first being Idols of Young Shoal. If you have a lot of these in your bank, you can just use one in your progression to get around the trial. The second is actually a far more creative way, and that's by stacking wishes at the Miserables NPC in floor 2. If you either pop a Moon's-Eye Tome or convert a bunch of medallions to knowledge, it's pretty easy to stack 10 or so wishes. That way you only have to go to the Temple of Hearts and wish to escape depths. It's a little slower than idols, but it's a lot more renewable on most builds. The final tip I'll talk about in regards to progressing is how to kill mobs faster. It should be pretty obvious, but if you kill a Chakra 2 times faster, then your effective XP rates are also double. The best way to do this is honestly just by using a Providence Thorns Battle Axe or Avenger. If you don't know, by unequipping and then re-equipping your starting weapon, you can enchant it with Providence Thorns and then store it in the bank to use on any slot. Having one of these weapons makes fighting monsters really easy, since Providence Thorns will deal damage on parry. In the past, you used to be able to stack DVM gear, but for some reason they added a bunch of filler content into weekly that added a level requirement. So sadly, you can't equip any gear to make your progression faster. However, you can max out the DVM Ekros upgrade if you want a small buff. The final way to kill monsters faster is simply by getting and then conserving the chain stacks on the Chain of Perfection talent. It can make monster kills up to twice as fast. And as always, I've said this before in the video, but the best overall tip to progressing is to simply log or stay away from other players. You never know who's going to attack you. But those are the best progression methods and the best tips to make your progressions insanely fast. If you take on what I've said here, you too can progress builds in as little as 1 hour, completely solo. As always, if you enjoyed this video or found the information useful, make sure to like and subscribe so I know to post more, and join the Discord if you want to get some awesome PvE builds. Check out some more PvE content, and I'll see you all next time.